In modern life, anxiety seems to have become a familiar part of existence. Society changes quickly, technology grows rapidly, people connect more, yet also become more vulnerable. Just a delayed reply to a message can stir our hearts. An unexpected change of plans can unsettle the mind. A silence without explanation is enough to plant seeds of doubt. Our minds are pulled by these small things, and anxiety grows like a shadow covering life. Yet, anxiety is not a sign of weakness. It does not prove that we have failed or that we are powerless. In truth, anxiety arises from love. When we care for someone, we worry about them. When we love something, we fear losing it. Anxiety is the hidden side of attachment. It is the shadow that follows the light of love. Without care, we would be indifferent. Without love, we would not tremble at the thought of loss. Seen this way, anxiety is not an enemy. It is a bell reminding us that our hearts still feel, that life still flows in every moment. The Buddha's teaching shows that all emotions have causes. They arise and they also fade away. Anxiety is no different. It becomes heavy only when we cling to it and identify with it. When we say, "I am anxiety," we give it power to bind us. But in truth, we are only experiencing a temporary feeling. Just as the sky remains vast despite the passing clouds, the mind remains clear despite moments of unrest. With this insight, we begin to release the burden. Anxiety will drift away like clouds moving across the open sky. Mindfulness is the path that brings us home. When we breathe deeply and know we are breathing, anxiety softens. When we walk slowly and are aware of each step, the mind is anchored in the present. In this moment, anxiety has no ground to hold on to. It exists only when the mind runs to the past or rushes into the future. But in the present, we can touch peace and freedom. Just one gentle breath, one soft smile is enough to calm the unease. Anxiety does not need to be erased completely. It can become a teacher. It shows us that we still love, that we still care, and it also teaches us to let go. When we look directly into anxiety with understanding, it loses its power. The heart becomes open and pure, and in that stillness, we discover a peace that nothing can shake. Life is a journey that no one can avoid. We all pass through birth, aging, sickness, and death as inevitable stages of human existence. When the Buddha was still a prince, he once encountered the sights of old age, illness, and death. These images awakened in him a profound truth. Everything that belongs to the body and to the world of phenomena is impermanent. Nothing lasts forever. Human beings may try to hold on to youth, health, or life itself, yet the law of all conditioned things never changes. Everything flows, transforms, and eventually fades away. However, the Buddha did not teach us to recognize impermanence in order to be afraid. On the contrary, awareness of impermanence is the doorway to wisdom. When we see clearly that all things are changing, we no longer cling to illusions of permanence. Instead of living in worry and insecurity, we learn to cherish each moment. A flower blooms and then withers, and because we know it cannot last forever, we truly appreciate its fragrance and beauty while it is here. A breath comes and goes, and because we see its fragility, we learn to return and live fully in each cycle of breathing. Impermanence also helps us loosen our grip on suffering. Sorrows, losses, and pains may feel endless, yet they too will pass. Just as rain cannot fall forever, and winter cannot stretch on without end, every sorrow has its limit. Contemplating in this way, we find trust and strength to move through hardship. We understand that everything is temporary. Even the deepest wounds of the heart can be healed if we are patient and learn to return to the breath, to the life that is present within us. Impermanence is not a reminder meant to frighten us. It is an invitation to awaken. It teaches us that our time is limited, and so we should not waste it in anger or worry. It encourages us to love while we can, to care while we are still here, and to live fully while we still breathe. Each moment that we are aware of impermanence, our hearts open a little more. We learn to appreciate more deeply, to let go more easily, and to live more profoundly.
Human life is shorter than we usually imagine. When we are young, we think we have an ocean of time to spend. But once the Buddha asked his disciples, "How long does a human being live?" One answered, "For a few days." Another said, "For a single meal." Yet only when a monk replied, "Just in one breath," did the Buddha nod and smile. That is the one who has seen the truth. For life truly exists only in that fragile moment, the breath in, the breath out. If this breath ceases, life also comes to an end. Each day we pass is one step closer to death. This may sound pessimistic, yet in truth, it is a call to awaken. Impermanence is not meant to frighten us, but to help us value the present. Only when we realize that time is limited do we stop wasting it on anger, jealousy, or sorrow. We learn to use each day, each hour, to love, to care, and to plant seeds of peace within ourselves and others. Contemplating that life lasts only for a single breath, we begin to see the fragility and preciousness of every moment. A simple meal with loved ones, a child's smile, or sunlight streaming through the window, all become miracles when we know they may not be here tomorrow. Instead of chasing endless worries, we learn to pause and live fully with what is present. Death is a truth that no one can escape, yet it is death that makes life sacred. If we live mindfully in each breath, death is no longer a terrifying shadow, but simply part of the natural cycle of existence. One who cherishes every breath will have no regrets when letting go, for they have lived fully, loved wholeheartedly, given selflessly, and smiled through every moment. Thus, the awakening that the Buddha pointed to is not somewhere far away. It is here, in this breath, in each step upon the earth. In every moment we realize the brevity of life. Seeing clearly in this way, we no longer run from death. Instead, we learn how to live deeply, live meaningfully, and leave behind the fragrance of love in this brief human journey.
The root of anxiety lies in attachment. In Buddhist terms, this is called upadana, clinging. We often live as though everything will remain unchanged. We believe that health, youth, wealth, or loved ones will always be with us. Yet the true nature of life is impermanence, and it is precisely our grasping at permanence that causes suffering. When what we hold on to changes or disappears, anxiety arises. It brings fear, insecurity, and imbalance to the heart. The Buddha taught that from attachment arises suffering, dukkha. When we want everything to stay under our control, we become bound. We cling to this body as if it were our permanent self. We cling to reputation as if it would never fade. We cling to loved ones as if they would never part. But youth fades, the body falls ill, death draws near, and loved ones depart. If we can only cling, the heart will be filled with wounds. There is a moving story of a woman with terminal cancer. At first, she was full of worry, fear, and bitterness. But when she encountered the Buddha's teaching, she began to see her body as something borrowed for a short while, not a possession to keep forever. Slowly, she practiced letting go, no longer trying to control what was beyond her reach. And surprisingly, in letting go, she discovered a peace she had never known. The physical pain remained, but her heart felt light and free. In her final days, she lived with a smile, with gratitude, and with deep serenity. This story reminds us that anxiety cannot disappear as long as we cling tightly. Only by releasing can the heart open and become light. Letting go does not mean abandoning life, but living with the wisdom that sees impermanence clearly. Then we can love without binding, care without holding, and live fully while still being ready to let go when the time comes. This is the freedom the Buddha called nirvana, the state where the mind is no longer ruled by anxiety.
The Buddha once compared life to 4 great mountains slowly moving toward us. These are birth, aging, sickness, and death. No matter who we are, no matter how much power we hold or how much wealth we possess, no one can escape these 4 mountains. Each day they draw closer, unstoppable and inevitable. Birth leads us toward aging. Aging brings us to sickness. And finally, death is the gate that none can avoid. When we face this truth, we see how fragile and short life truly is. Yet people often choose to run away. We fear old age and try desperately to hold on to youth. We fear illness, yet live carelessly with our bodies. We fear death, so we pretend to forget that it is always waiting ahead. But the truth remains, whether we acknowledge it or not. The 4 mountains keep advancing. Running away only adds more anxiety, fear, and exhaustion. Knowing that we cannot escape, we are left with only one path: to prepare.
Preparation does not mean gathering wealth or power, but cultivating mindfulness and compassion. With mindfulness, we see the reality of impermanence in each moment. We learn to treasure the present, to love while we can, and to let go of what does not matter. Mindfulness gives us steadiness in the face of suffering, keeping us from being swept away by fear. Compassion is the companion that warms our hearts on this journey. When we know how to love ourselves and others, we live more lightly. Compassion helps us forgive, helps us connect, and fills our short human life with meaning. If the four mountains are approaching, then compassion is the path we can walk without regret. Thus, instead of fleeing from the truth, let us face it with wisdom and love. The four mountains are not meant to bring despair, but to awaken us. They remind us that time is limited, so let us live deeply, love fully, and prepare for the final letting go with a peaceful heart. Anxiety always tends to pull us toward the future. It makes the mind imagine scenarios that have not yet come, things that might be lost, risks that have not appeared. The more we think, the more we are bound in a whirlpool of unease, like standing before a storm that has not yet arrived, but already trembling in fear. Anxiety never exists in the present. It only lives in the projections of the mind. For this reason, the Buddha taught that the path out of anxiety is to bring the mind back to this moment through the practice of mindfulness. Mindfulness is not something distant. It begins with awareness of the breath. When we breathe in and know that we are breathing in, breathe out and know that we are breathing out, in that instant, the mind is settled in the present. A mindful breath has the power to cut through endless thoughts of the future. It pulls us out of imagined worries and returns us to the life unfolding right now. With just one deep, gentle, conscious breath, we can already feel peace spreading throughout body and mind. The breath is the bridge that brings us back to ourselves. In the rushing stream of life, we often forget the true home of the heart. We run after work, after expectations, after images that society builds for us. Yet, whenever we pause and return to the breath, we immediately touch ourselves and the miraculous life present in this very moment. There, we see the body alive, the heart beating, and life continuing to flow through us. Practicing mindfulness through breathing does not mean we drive anxiety away. Rather, we look at it with the light of awareness. When anxiety arises, we smile at it and return to the breath. Like a mother holding her crying child, the mindful breath embraces anxiety, soothing and calming it. From then on, we are no longer dominated by anxiety, but can stand firmly in peace. The path out of anxiety is not far away. It lies right in our daily breathing. Simply by remembering to return to each breath, we can escape the whirlpool of unease. The mindful breath is a gift we all carry within us. When we know how to rely on it, we discover the way out and find a place of true refuge, the awareness within our own heart. Letting go is often misunderstood as indifference or coldness. But in the Buddha's teaching, Letting go does not mean turning away from life. Letting go is a way of loving fully without clinging. When we love with attachment, affection always carries anxiety, fear, and suffering. We fear losing the one we love, fear that love will change, fear that what we hold dear will no longer remain. But when we know how to let go, we still love, still care, yet the heart is no longer bound. That love becomes pure and free, no longer tied to mine or belonging to me. Letting go is also the gateway to great compassion. When we have the capacity to look deeply into our own suffering, we begin to see that our pain is not unique. Everyone knows loss. Everyone has tasted anxiety. Everyone carries wounds in the heart. Seeing this, our hearts open. Suffering is no longer a reason for resentment, but becomes a bridge connecting us with all beings. From there, our love is no longer confined to the circle of self, but expands into compassion that embraces all of life. The Buddha once said, "Whoever cares for the sick is caring for the Tathagata himself." This teaching shows that compassion is not merely a noble quality, but the very essence of the path of liberation. When we extend our hands to care for someone fragile, we are directly touching the spirit of awakening. When we bow before the suffering of others, our minds are freed from the narrow boundaries of self and flow into the stream of shared existence. In that moment, we are no longer dominated by anxiety or fear, for love and understanding have taken their place. Letting go and compassion are like the two wings of a bird. Only by letting go can we soar into the sky of freedom, and only by cultivating compassion can the heart discover true peace. This path is not distant. It begins with the simplest acts: a compassionate glance, a gentle word, a moment of deep listening. Living in this way, we take steady steps on the path of liberation, where anxiety and suffering gradually dissolve, making space for wisdom and love to flourish. In life, no one can avoid the experience of suffering. The body may fall ill and feel pain. The mind may become restless, anxious, or shaken. Usually, we see suffering as an enemy, trying in every way to drive it away, to hide it, or to forget it. Yet, in the Buddha's teaching, suffering is not an enemy, but a great teacher. It is precisely because of suffering that we have the chance to look within, to return to ourselves, and to discover the path to true peace. Physical pain is a valuable lesson. When the body grows weary, when illness arises, we realize how fragile and precious this life is. Every moment free of pain is a gift. Every ordinary breath is a miracle. Without sickness, we might take health for granted and chase after meaningless pursuits. But when illness comes, it reminds us to return to caring for body and mind, to live in balance, and to appreciate what once seemed obvious. A restless mind is also a teacher. When anger, anxiety, or fear rises, we can feel the disturbance clearly. If we only run away or suppress it, we will never understand its root. But if we pause, breathe mindfully, and look deeply into our hearts, we will see that this suffering is asking to be heard. It wants us to understand, to take care, and to grow. Suffering, when listened to and contemplated, becomes an opportunity for growth. Just as mud nourishes the lotus, it is suffering that allows happiness to bloom. One who has tasted loss knows the true value of love. One who has walked through suffering develops the capacity to empathize with the pain of others. In this way, compassion and wisdom are cultivated within us. If we shift our perspective, suffering will no longer be a darkness covering us, but a lamp guiding the way. It shows us what to let go of, what to nurture, and what truly matters in life. With awareness, we can transform wounds into lessons and suffering into opportunities for awakening. Then we truly see that suffering is a devoted teacher, always present to guide us back to ourselves. Many people, when they hear about impermanence, feel pessimistic. They believe that if everything changes and eventually disappears, then life must be meaningless. But in the light of the Buddha's teaching, impermanence is not a denial of meaning. It is a bell reminding us to cherish each moment. Precisely because everything is fragile, each present moment becomes infinitely precious. If things were permanent, we would no longer value them, and life would become dull. A flower is beautiful because it fades quickly. If it bloomed forever without withering, perhaps we would no longer see its worth. Its fragility makes us pause, bow down, and enjoy its fragrance and beauty. In the same way, human life is short, and it is this brevity that makes every moment of living a miracle. Knowing that a day gone by will never return, we stop wasting it in anger or worry. Instead, we choose to live deeply and with love. In the teachings, the Buddha said that one day lived in mindfulness and wisdom is more valuable than 100 years lived in ignorance. For one day of awakening can open the path to liberation, while 100 years in ignorance only sink us deeper into the cycle of suffering. The meaning of life is not measured by its length, but by the depth of each moment we live. If we can live even a single day fully, with love, with letting go, with care for ourselves and others, then that day contains the value of an entire lifetime. Impermanence teaches us to release attachment. It shows us that wealth, fame, or even this body are only temporary. Because of that, we turn back to what truly matters: love, understanding, and awareness. When we live in this way, we no longer fear change, for it is change itself that gives meaning to our journey. Instead of seeing impermanence as a shadow, let us view it as a guiding light. It teaches us to treasure today, to love in this very moment, and to live wholeheartedly while we still can. And when we truly live the present moment fully, we discover that life is not meaningless at all, but a wondrous gift contained in every breath.
Impermanence is one of the most fundamental truths taught by the Buddha. It is not a reminder meant to sadden or discourage us, but a bell of awakening that urges us to love more, forgive more, and live more deeply. Normally, when people hear of impermanence, they only think of loss and change. Yet if we look carefully, impermanence is not a denial of meaning, but the very ground of meaning itself. For if everything were permanent, we would never learn to value anything. Precisely because
All things are fragile. Each moment becomes a priceless gift. Human life is as brief as a single breath. The Buddha taught that our very existence rests upon this fragile thread of breathing. When this breath continues, life continues. When this breath stops, everything comes to an end. And yet, because we are swept away by work, ambition, and endless worries, we often forget this basic truth. We live as though we will remain forever, and in doing so, we waste our time in anger, anxiety, and meaningless pursuits. Only when we realize that life exists in just one breath do we truly pause to cherish the present moment. When we are fully present in the breath, anxiety dissolves. Anxiety always pulls us into the future, into imagined scenarios that make us restless. But the breath exists only in the here and now. Breathing in and knowing that we are breathing in. Breathing out and knowing that we are breathing out. This simple act brings us home to ourselves. In that instant, future fears and past regrets disappear. What remains is a quiet peace, a stillness, as simple as it is profound. Impermanence also teaches us to forgive more. When we understand that the people we love will one day change and depart, we no longer cling to resentment. We forgive while we still have the chance, knowing that one day the opportunity will no longer be there. Forgiveness does not mean forgetting, but opening the heart so that it may be light. It is a gift we give not only to others, but also to ourselves. Forgiveness frees the heart from burdens and allows it to rest in freedom. Furthermore, impermanence urges us to love more deeply. Our time together is short, so every moment matters. A simple embrace, a gentle word, a gesture of care can become a light that warms another's heart. If we live mindfully, we will not let love be hidden by busyness or neglect. We will choose to love now, without postponing to tomorrow. Impermanence is also a teacher that calls us to live more deeply. Knowing that tomorrow may not come, we cease to live superficially. We stop chasing illusions of fame, wealth, or power, and instead pause to enjoy a quiet morning, to listen to the birds, to smile at the sunlight filtering through the leaves. What seems small and ordinary becomes the true source of life's meaning. To live deeply does not mean to do grand things, but to be fully present in each ordinary moment. When we contemplate impermanence and practice mindful breathing, death no longer appears as a fearful shadow. Instead, it becomes a natural part of existence. If we have lived mindfully with each breath, then when the final breath arrives, we can let go with a smile. For we know we have truly lived, truly loved, and found peace right here in the present. Death, then, is not an ending, but a natural continuation within the cycle of arising and passing away. The human journey is brief, but that does not make it meaningless. On the contrary, it is brevity that makes each moment infinitely precious. 100 years lived in ignorance is only a long chain of wasted days. But a single day lived in mindfulness is enough to touch truth, enough to sow seeds of happiness for ourselves and for others. The value of life is not measured by the number of years, but by the depth of each breath we live. In the end, impermanence does not come to frighten us. It comes to awaken us. It reminds us that life rests in one breath, and that in this breath lies the whole miracle of existence. When we are truly present in the breath, anxiety no longer rules us. Regret no longer binds us. What remains is quiet peace, a stillness beyond all change. And within that peace, we discover the true meaning of life: to love, to forgive, and to live deeply in every moment.